Today's episode is all about some of the complexities that flow from becoming a parent. In Raman's case, there are extra layers, like when his girlfriend had to explain to her children that Raman is becoming a dad, specifically a platonic co-parent with his friend Ashley. Stick with us and we'll walk you through how Masha's unplanned experiences, divorcing in COVID, not in her home country, trapped at home with her children and soon-to-be ex-husband and her mother, prepared her for navigating all kinds of messy parenting realities. And we'll also share her surprising tip for not spending too much money if you find yourself in need of a divorce. Welcome back. I'm Dr. Angel here with my crypto-curious, situationally philosophical, occasionally contrarian, powder day prioritizing brother, Raman. And today we're joined by Masha, Raman's girlfriend. Masha's Ukrainian. She lives in Oklahoma, has 2 kids, and has been through a divorce. She's also navigating something a little unique, being in a relationship with someone who is about to have a baby with a platonic friend. Today, we hear Masha's story and talk a little bit about divorce because many people go through that. In pediatrics, I see a lot of family configurations: divorced parents, blended families, kids going between 2 homes, and sometimes there's 4 parents involved, sometimes 3, sometimes grandparents. What I've noticed is that the hardest part is rarely the logistics, it's the emotional hangover for the parents and for the kids. So I'm really glad Masha's here because this is a conversation a lot of people need, but not enough people are having.
And I am very happy that you're here with us today, Masha. Masha is my wonderful, loving, caring, giving, warm, successful, bright, and just awesome partner to have in this journey.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, Masha, it's great to have you back. We want to kind of dive into learning a little more about how you handled your life changes. And because a lot of people are going through this. So, where do we want to start? When did you get divorced? How old were your kids? I mean, you're from the Ukraine and
Just Ukraine.
Okay, sorry. I know you've told me that before. For listeners out there, we don't have to put a "the" in front of Ukraine. You're from Ukraine. I imagine most of your family is there, right?
My mom and dad are in Ukraine, but my sister and my friends, a lot of my friends have been able to move out, but my mom and dad are still in Ukraine. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just, also just thinking about your support system when you were going through family changes, like when you were going through your divorce. So yeah, let's dive in.
Yeah, probably. Well, divorce happened 5 years ago or something like that. But I think there was a lot of things happening pre-divorce. So it's not like divorce itself was a big event, even though it was. I think what led to the divorce and sometimes after that, that's, I think, the full story, right? So, I think now I'm trying to ask myself a question: where do I begin this story? Because I think every story is unique, but at the same time, as I was thinking about, I think there are certain things that from the experience I have realized that had I known before could have helped me to navigate through that, because event in itself is pretty challenging for everyone involved. And there's almost it's between 2 adults, but there's also kids, there's also family, there's also friends, and navigating through all of that, not an easy task.
I think a good place to maybe start, Masha, is when did you know that there was someone better out there than your ex-husband and that this was not the right situation for you, even though it may have been at the time, But, as we all know, we grow and mature and change.
Well, honey, I didn't know it until I met you, but I think I have in my marriage. When I was thinking about the divorce, I Googled the reasons why people do get divorced, and I looked at the top 10 reasons. And me and my husband did not necessarily matched any of those. We didn't have financial issues. We did not have parental disagreements. We both were pretty secure in our jobs. We aligned on politics, religion, you named it. And, I think like from the outside, we looked like just a normal functioning family. And I think like to me was a point of realization that even with all of that going on, I was not happy. I couldn't pinpoint of why that was the case, but I was not. And I think like at some point I started realizing that there was not a whole lot of connection between us, and kids were connecting us. Of course, we were both, I think, were and are pretty responsible parents, and we're different in a lot of ways, but the connection at some point got lost, and we grew apart to the point where it was very difficult to find a path back to reconnecting. And we've tried. We did not take it easy. It was definitely not how do you say it, an instantaneous decision or an emotional decision. It was very thoughtful decision, I think.
Were you worried? So I'm projecting here. Were you worried what other people were going to think? Like your family, your parents, your friends, your community? Like, did you have that in your head?
The country of Ukraine.
It's interesting. Because a really long time ago, and these stories keep popping up right now in my brain, and they're just like similar to last time. Like, how do you remember this? Like a really long time, I was having a conversation with a friend who went through the divorce, and she was sharing a conversation with her friend where she asked, "Hey, do you think I should get a divorce?" And the friend's response was, "When you're ready to get a divorce, you would not be asking me this question." And that stood out, and somehow I remembered that because once I was ready, there was absolutely nothing that I was worried about in a sense of like as a hurdle to getting to the point where I wanted to be. So I knew it was going to be difficult conversations, but I was not worried about like what people were going to think. And I mean, it like we did not share the news. And for a really long time, people thought that we were still married. I think like a few years ago, somebody asked me at work where my ex-husband was out, knowing that at that point, the person was my ex-husband. So, yeah, I think like, like not oversharing, but I think like the conversations with friends and family, it was surprising to them because, again, we very much looked like a well-functioning hot couple, but within our family unit was not necessarily where I wanted to be.
Was he as sure as you were when you were sure?
I'm not sure, and I don't know, right? I don't know where he. I don't think both of us, like either one, was necessarily happy, but I think like I have voiced it out first to the point of this is not working and I don't see other solutions to this. And I think Angel mentioned seeing the families and how the kids are in all of this. And I think like that was very important to me as I was still married, that we could stay together for the kids, but I also don't want my kids to grow up in this environment where they see our family dynamics. And we were really good. We were not having like fights in front of the kids. And I don't think kids were involved in any of the disagreements or anything like that. But I still did not want my kids to grow up and believe that this is what happy or like family looks like. And I think like part of me, like that came to realization later was that while I couldn't be happy with my ex-husband, or I didn't think that at that time, like I thought like he also deserves to have a shot at happiness. And I thought that I was not that person that could give him what he needed at that time. So I think like just combining all of that after that, again, was not an easy decision, but something that I think was necessary at the point, and no regrets.
Thanks for sharing that. And I think I love that you knew what you needed to do. But it seems like you were really positive in terms of the way that you portrayed your relationship with your ex-husband to your kids, because that is actually super important for how they handle divorce. And it sounds like you guys were very caring and loving toward each other, even if it wasn't in the in-love romantic, I want to be married with you kind of love, but you were caring toward each other.
It's probably like one of the hard things. You are obviously divorcing for the reason you don't like each other very much. But at the same time, you have to, yeah, you have to stay, you have to keep that side at least away from the children. Right. And I would not say that I have a perfect record of that, but at the same time, I think like recognizing that, and sometimes it was like repeating to yourself, this is not something that kids need to know. This is your struggle. This is not should be placed on the kids, almost like giving yourself a prep talk before kids come back and before you put on a happy face and you greet each other. And so it was a process, and it was not necessarily an easy one, but I think like we all doing our best, and maybe to some of us it comes easier, more natural than to the others. But
well, let me just say, first of all, like nobody is a perfect parent all of the time. Like nobody. And so, I mean, whether you're together or not together, we're all messing up. We're all giving our kids our leftovers sometimes. So that's totally okay, as long as, you come back and give them a loving situation to buffer that stressful situation, which I'm sure you guys did. I do want to kind of like focus a little bit on how you managed different situations with your kids. Like, what happened did your ex start dating first? Did you start dating first? How did you handle meeting a new woman in your ex's life that is kind of in your kids' lives? Let's start with that.
Can we backtrack just a tad? Because I'm interested in all this. And especially from your perspective, Angel, like, you're obviously a parent and a pediatrician. For the children's sake and for, my future child, like, is it the structure of the family that is actually important at all? Or is it just kind of how the adults interact and behave?
Great question. And it's been studied. There's actually a lot of research on this, and it really, and especially looking at like gay parents or, just total atypical families, like different than the traditional nuclear one mom, one dad, biological mom, dad family. The research really supports the idea that it's the love that the child feels, it's the household environment, the parenting styles. So being affectionate, having limits, but also seeing the sides of your children and letting them chime in sometimes, like that kind of authoritative parenting style, not authoritarian, and the type of environment where there is a lot of love, a lot of support. You have, a structure, but that matters way more than being in a house with a mom and a dad if the people there aren't happy or if they're yelling. So people have looked at this, and the kids are fine in various different upbringings. So it really points to the love that the child feels and the supportive environment much more than the structure of the environment. More the structure of the life of the child is important, like having a schedule, going to school, but like the household structure, the makeup of the adults in the household is less important than the type of attention and love and support that the child is getting.
not the need for the perfect parent. It's the need for the emotionally healthy parent.
That's, basically.
I read it on ChatGPT.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. That's fine. ChatGPT stole it from me. So let's go back then. Okay. After this. So how did you manage? Because this is really important. How do the kids handle meeting a new woman in their dad's life, for example? And then we'll come to how you introduce them to Raman.
Maybe like a step back about telling kids about the divorce, which was not easy as well. But I think like I think that was really good timing because Elaine my daughter was about 7 at that time, but she was always too mature for her age. And she took it really well. She almost like tried to cheer us up. It's like, oh, we are going to have 2 houses. That's awesome. My son, who was 4 at that time, he took it much harder. And I think like he was just so worried that he's not going to have a mom in his life, or he's not going to have a dad in his life. And what is it going to be like? But I think at this point, he remembers so little of the time when we were together that it actually may have been a good time for us to go our separate ways. And I don't know, the whole dating. I think like both of us being, I think both of us being pretty responsible parents. I don't remember the year when my ex-husband introduced the kids to his girlfriend at a time. And I think like I've learned from the kids that there was Poppy's like girlfriend like they've met her, or maybe they just told me that he has a girlfriend. And I was genuinely happy. I was genuinely happy about the fact that there's somebody in his life who he is dating and, starting maybe like this new relationship and things like that. And I think like my worry came later when she started spending time with kids, but I did not know a whole lot about that woman. And I say that woman at that time, that doesn't sound nice, but all right. But I did not know a whole lot. And I asked for a meeting, and it took us a while, but eventually we met. And there were a couple of situations where it was not necessarily an easy adjustment for me. But I think like at the end of the day, this is like when you start learning that you're not in control of a lot of things. And sometimes you just have to, let certain things go. And I think like I have in the conversations with myself, I have told myself that I need to trust him to not to introduce to children to somebody who could be in any way a harmful, negative influence. And I did have that trust. So that came very that part came easy. I think like there was a little bit of jealousy because they, I haven't been in that situation before. I did not know, is this woman replacing me? Is she going to spend like my kids loving her more than me right now, right? She's giving them these gifts. And I think at that point, what was really, really helpful to me was having conversations with my friends who have been in the position of stepmoms, who pretty much like even a stepmom, it's not a mom. It's like an adult who takes care of your children. They get more presents. They're happier. It's different. I don't know, not even influence, but a point of view, because after all, we're not necessarily trying to shape our kids or mold them. And we want to, but we know we probably shouldn't mold them into the versions of ourselves. So I think like that, like having friends who've been in this situations of being stepmoms really helped me to kind of like take a different perspective of like, yeah, I'm really excited about, not excited, that might be an overstatement, but I'm glad there's somebody else in my kid's life who they look up to and who takes care of them and who can provide them with something that maybe I can't all the time.
So your ex didn't tell you when he started dating someone, you found out from your kids. Did you Did you tell him about Raman? Have you told him about Raman yet? Or did you wait for your kids to tell him?
Wait 1 second. Wait, when you found out from your kids that your ex had a girlfriend, were you like, dude, you should have told me that?
No, because I think like I found out about him having a girlfriend, which is none of my business. When she started entering my kid's life, that's when it became my business,
Wow,
right?
interesting.
So it's not about him dating someone. It's about the woman spending time with my kids.
But the kids spent time with her before.
I don't remember the details if like that's
Maybe it's not- maybe
important
it's not
because you know
important. Yeah.
they may have just told me like she like you know Poppy like dated that they called him Poppy like that he's dating, right? I don't know if I think like he may have told me about the meeting them actually before they met her.
Okay.
So I might have known about the upcoming meeting, but yeah.
Got it.
Ramen. Yeah, introducing Ramen was actually like pretty natural. We also been dating for a while, I think, like at that point. And you know, first time I introduced him just as my friend, just because you know I
Wait,
have a
are
lot
we
of
talking
friends.
about to the kids or to your
My
ex?
kids.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
Sure,
no,
kids.
Ramen kind of introduced himself to ex. I didn't.
How did Raman get introduced first, to your ex or to your kids?
Oh, no, I think to my kids. I think to my kids as well. Yeah. And I think like at that point, the agreement between us was we never had an agreement that we need to know about the significant others. I think like the agreement was more about, all right, well, and we have it written in a custody agreement that you know you have to be dating someone for a year or something like that too. But we don't have any requirement to introduce him since I was going from the second as a second role. I kind of like took it upon myself to figure out what's the better way of bringing him. But yeah, when there was like a time when Ramen like had to watch the kids, I did text him and I said that this is the person who will be staying with the kids for a few hours, and here's the phone number just in case. And yeah, that was that. So,
Did your kids have like specific questions like, hey, why is his hair so long? Or just
And what did you say when you first you said you introduced him as a friend, and then like
you know, because we're dating long distance, they haven't seen him for a while, right? And then we went skiing together, right? Also as friends. He had a separate room. He did not stay with us. And then like a little bit later, he came to Oklahoma to hang out, right? Something like that. It was like during the solar eclipse or something like that time. And you know he was staying in the house, and I did have a conversation with kids shortly before then, and I said, well, guys, you know Ramen, and we are like, I don't know, it was like not very like I don't know. These conversations
it was pretty mellow,
like,
it sounds like.
we're yeah, but it's also like we are dating, and my daughter's like, Mom, of course you're dating. We figured this out. Like, what kind of boy would want to go skiing with a girl? And you know, actually, like a few days ago, I talked to kids about Ramen becoming a dad, and that was also a pretty interesting conversation. So sorry, like I wanted to share. Ramen, sorry, I didn't involve you in this.
yeah, so tell us how that went. So what was the more difficult conversation to have?
Right, telling him you're divorced or that you're dating Raman or that Raman's now
No,
going to be
definitely divorce was the hard. No, this one was also pretty mellow because you know, like I do talk to kids about sex and things like they don't want to, but I still try to bring this as a topic because I want this to be a natural conversation for us as they're growing and having to figure that out, either from me or from somebody else. And yeah, I said like, well, I have some news to share about Ramen, and like you know, like Ramen does not have kids, but he wanted to be a dad, and he has a friend who they decided to do the to co-parent, and I explained the IVF process to them in very simple terms, and they both looked at me like, okay, and I'm like, do you have any questions for me? And Eli's like, Mom, are you still? I'm like, yes, we're still not platonic.
Non-platonic, yes.
That's pretty much like was the whole conversation. So it went like, I think like it was and we're going back to the conversation of co-parenting and our situation. I think it was a very good example to me how kids who are not necessarily surrounded by societal norms of what is normal, what is not, right? How okay it was to talk to them. It was probably one of the easiest conversations that I have had where I did not feel any sort of like discomfort, even though those were my kids. But
100%. I think the earlier you have conversations that include what in our generation might have been like different or atypical, it normalizes it for younger kids. So this happens to me all the time. Like parents don't want to talk to their kids about sex or about gay people or gay couples. And I said, well, the more you avoid talking about it, the more it becomes a taboo, or because now they know their parents don't talk about it and they're going to hear about it from somewhere else. And so I find that very interesting. We have a few gay couples that are married, and some of them have kids. In our lives, we have a few gay couples who are married, and some of them have kids. And so my kids grew up thinking that you could have two moms or have two dads, and then they meet other people whose parents very deliberately don't want to have those conversations yet because they think their kids are too young. So I disagree with that. I think you want to have all these conversations earlier, especially about sex, because it's not even sexual if you have the conversation very early. Like you're saying about IVF, it's really about science when you just have a conversation with a fourth grader about how sex happens. It's just the kids will be like, oh, it's like mating. I have a couple more questions for you, Masha. So first, since your family, your mom and dad are in Ukraine, who did you lean on for support? Did you lean on them? Was it easier with them not in the country?
Sorry, I'm laughing not because of the question and my parents. I'm laughing because the timing could not have been better for the divorce to unfold, because once the decision was made to get a divorce, we were thinking actually about like renting an apartment or a house where we would transition, so the kids would stay in the same house as we take care of them. That was our like first plan for the separation. And my mother was coming to visit us because I was going with the students on a trip. And so she was coming, and that was my plan of telling her and then eventually telling my dad. And mom came, I was about to go on the trip, and COVID hit. And here we are, 5 of us. I just told my mother I'm getting divorced. My soon-to-be ex-husband and 2 kids under the age of 6, 7. Oh, I did mention that. Not planned, but so that was actually pretty interesting time to be together for 5 months. And I think like it was actually good for us as co-parents, because we knew we were figuring out like how, yes, we know that divorce is coming, but we were very, what's the word? Not social with each other, like civil with each other, right? That's the word I was looking for. And it kind of like helped us to navigate, even though we knew where we were heading, but like being okay, being in a close proximity to each other. With mom was like, I think like sharing with her was fine. Avoiding her advice of don't do it was probably.
Yeah, but did your mom's opinion change after she met me?
Honey, you are her favorite, so you don't have to worry about the thing with my mom. Yeah, no, but I think like like for moms, it just like was like, you were doing fine. Look at you two, you were doing fine. Why, right? Why are you getting the divorce. Yeah, like I wouldn't say like my parents were the family that I was leaning on, but I have a family of friends, and I think like that, and again, like I think like because it was COVID and our conversations were limited, and this is not the conversation I wanted to have over the phone. So a lot of my friends found out like a little later as we kind of like this were at the point of moving our separate ways. And I think like that kind of like goes to maybe even the, having friends was really important and very valuable for me.
Yes.
At that time. I think like it's always the case. But
so what advice would you give to a couple going through a divorce with young children?
Advice. I don't know. I don't know, right? I think because every situation is very different, but I also know that preparation helps. I think when I went to consult with an attorney, I feel like that was already too late. I did not prepare for my divorce the way I wished I did. And it's not, you kind of do prepare emotionally for this, but there's a lot of things that come after the divorce, like being financially independent, figuring out, even like, what do you do if you do need to go to work and your kids are with you and right, like babysitters, and I don't have family support here to rely on. But I wish I talked to the attorney earlier. I think like I would have made some financial decisions through the marriage differently to prepare for what came after that. I think having family or friends really important. And I think specifically here, I was very lucky to have my best friends, and I have a few of them.
I can vouch for them. They're really cool.
Yeah, thank you. I agree. But those friends had my back, because I think like at that moment when you are being vulnerable, and we're all good people. Again, my ex-husband is a good person, but to me it was extremely important to have somebody around who had my back, who would not say, well, you have to understand him. No, at that point I did not want to. And it was very important for me to have someone who would just be there for me, not necessarily both of us. I don't know if this is an advice, but I think like it was a pretty important for me at that time. Shortly after the divorce was finalized, I have made a decision to stop consuming alcohol. And I think it was like one of the best decisions I have made at that time, because I don't know, I don't remember all the surrounding that.
Maybe it was the alcohol.
But I remember like...
I know, that doesn't sound good, Masha.
I'm just kidding.
Probably. Yeah, but it was actually like interesting. It was like 5 years ago, about now. I remember the date. I do remember it. But I think like it was very helpful to me, because I think a lot of times wine was a way to forget the issues, the problems. And once I removed that from the equations, I did not try to forget. I started actually working towards solving a lot of things. And I know it's not necessarily gonna work for everyone, or it's a very personal decision, of course. But to me, it was something important, and I think like meaningful, and I think it helped me a lot to navigate through the time.
Just to clarify, you were not dependent on alcohol, but you found yourself...
I don't think I was,
okay.
Right?
I'm curious,
And it's like the thing, like I never thought that it was just like quitting drinking was not even about like, well, there were as probably more questions about me quitting drinking as divorce, right? Like I think like people were more impressed with me being able to say no to alcohol, because, before then I had to pretend to be drinking during my pregnancy, because, otherwise like everybody would know that I'm pregnant, but I also like don't think like it was COVID that turned into divorce, and it turned into like, having wine on a regular basis became a norm.
I think a lot of people drank a lot during COVID and had to self-reflect on how that did not actually help anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I actually like, well, now I do drink some wine here and there. And I remember my first glass of wine was actually in Mexico a year and a half ago with Raman when we were in Cabo. And I remember like having such a beautiful night with the lights and the fires and this gorgeous man sitting next to me. I think like my first glass was about me feeling very secured and safe. Like it was almost like that was the point of celebration rather than something to drink the source or something like that. So I don't know.
Oh, thanks for saying that. I'm glad I was the reason that you had a glass of wine.
I know you have to be very careful saying this thing, but yeah, it's just it's been a journey, right? And
Not to get tangential, but I was just a little curious about like, we've talked about your kids a lot, and did they have to explain stuff to their friends or teachers, or were people curious? Was it weird? Was it hard for you to constantly tell them? Like, was there a situation where you'd be like, hey, everything is cool, this is normal, this is fine, this is what you're like, don't worry about what your kids are saying at school? Or did they even talk about it with their friends, or did they? That's a lot.
I know kids talk because but I'm either I think like we were really lucky with the way our kids took the divorce and separation. And again, I don't know if that's the age or of us handling this in a particular way, or maybe all surrounding that, maybe education. But like we did approach it very intentionally, and even with the divorce, I think we approached as both as economists. We knew that if we're going to start fighting about the divorce, it's going to get really, really expensive. So we didn't even have to go to the court for our divorce. We're like, I went to talk to the lawyer. He went to talk to the lawyer. We're like, all right, that's like, sounds like about like what we're going to do. All right, sounds good.
That might just be the best piece of advice you can give anyone going through a divorce.
Get a PhD in economics.
If you want to save money, make it easy. Figure it out.
Right. Yeah. But no, I think like kids like took it relatively well. I from just observing them, but I do know that they talk, and I do know that there were worry in their life. And I think like when my ex-husband did start dating, and I remember having a conversation with Eli, and he was very upset. He was not upset necessarily because there was something, but he was not upset. I think like maybe worried, and he is this like more sensitive, emotional, maybe human being. And he's like, Mom, I'm really scared. I'm like, why are you scared? Well, I'm really worried that Dad is dating and they're going to get married and they're going to have more kids. And he's asking me like, are you going to get married and have more kids? And this is like a very tricky spot where you don't want to make a promise to your kid that you may not be able to handle. But I think like part of that conversation was staying with me when Raman decided to have kids. And I think like to me at this point of life, I was comfortable and I had my kids, and looking at them, I knew I did not necessarily need to have more. So yes, a silver lining. And maybe you were asking, I don't know, maybe it was in the previous episode, but yeah, I think like now I'm going back to the previous episode. Like maybe I just wanted to mention this, but like when Raman shared his decision with me, I took it very personally. And I probably should have taken it very personally. And it was a very hard moment for me. But at the same time, I think like as I stepped back and started looking at the situation from a different angle and looking at it from maybe his perspective, I have seen a lot more of how this could be something that actually will work for us much better than any other possible scenario. So
Wow, Masha, thank you for sharing so much of your story. I think I take away from this that you and your husband were very intentional.
Ex-husband.
You and your ex-husband were really,
Yes, Angel.
maybe because
We're a really blended family.
maybe because of circumstances and COVID, maybe because you are both economists, but for whatever reason, you guys really seem to be able to talk things out, maintain a lot of civil discourse, and keep your kids involved with the decisions. And you were very open and honest with your kids throughout the process. And I think that's really important, because if you're not honest with your kids, they will make up a story that's worse or scarier to them. So being honest at an age appropriate level, we've mentioned this before on this show, you can't go wrong, because when your kid hears it from you and knows you're telling them the truth, they know they can trust you. They know they can come back to you for more when they have more questions. So thank you for sharing all that.
And with that, I think this is a good time to go into Dr. Angel's medical breakdown.
Yeah. So divorce, among other things, divorce is known to be an adverse childhood event. So an adverse childhood event, an ACE is what it's called in the literature. They're very well studied. So these are traumatic experiences, like divorce, a parent becoming incarcerated, losing a loved one, a chronic illness in the family, having a sibling going through a chronic disease. And these are really studied because they're kind of fascinating. Going through an adverse childhood experience, an adverse childhood event, changes your DNA and makes you more likely to have a chronic disease when you're an adult. And the more ACEs you accumulate, the more likely you are to have these chronic diseases. But not all kids grow up to have these chronic diseases. Not all kids that have undergone adverse childhood events grow up to have these chronic diseases. So why is that? Well, that has also been studied, and research really supports that stressful experiences, traumatic experiences in childhood can be buffered by happy experiences. They're even studied as benevolent childhood events, but happy experiences, love, cuddles, talking to your kids, having a connection, and honest conversations are a form of connection. Those can buffer and mitigate the negative experiences that they are having. So, a kid you may not have wanted your kid to go through divorce, Masha, but helping them along, whether it's with your connection, your love, your amicable relationship with your ex, or therapy, whatever it is that it takes, the community that you have, your friends, your family, all of those things can offset the potentially negative consequences of adverse childhood events. So I just think that's really important to know. And you mentioned silver linings earlier. And if you can model for your kids that you see silver linings, then they can learn to see silver linings. And that makes people more resilient. People who can see silver linings are more resilient, and more resilient people are more likely to bounce back from these adverse childhood experiences. So it's all kind of intertwined. Another part of the breakdown, just want to mention, is that men and women both are at risk for depression after a divorce. So Masha, you mentioned your community of friends. That was your support. So whether it's your friends, your family, your therapist, just make sure you get the help that you need. And men especially are more likely to have a first-time major depressive episode. So they may have never gone through something like this before, whereas women are, because we're more prone to depression, we might kind of see the symptoms coming. Men might not know what's hitting them. So it's really important to support your guy friends.
What kind of, people who are more resilient and see silver linings do better, but what makes those people? Is it kind of what you're saying, those buffering experiences?
Yeah, and role modeling. So that's why, like, if you can role model for your kids, and gratitude exercises can help with this too. But if you can role model for your kids that you see something in a situation that's tough, not not every time, because it's also, like Masha said earlier, emotions are never bad. But sometimes, we always want to talk about emotions, and emotions and we want to be able to feel our kids' emotions. So when they're sad about something, we don't have to immediately turn to a silver lining. We can let people be sad, but at some point you want to start looking at things from a positive perspective, because that does model for your kids how to be resilient, and and then you can question, like, well, what is another way we can look at this, or you can look at a problem from different angles.
I think like, again, if I may chime in, it's like it gets to the point still where you're like, well, like, I know there's time to be processed, but would you like to look for the solution, or do you still want the time to process? And I think like having that time to let them decide, and I'm talking about kids right now, right? Like, once they're ready to have a solution, and then offering some options where I think like might be actually help them realize that maybe a problem is not a problem.
No, 100%. I love that. In our house, I like to say I don't necessarily need to hear all my kids' problems, but I love when they tell me about solutions they find, because, as you know, kids. And I really love that, Masha. And I also want to just clarify that I'm not necessarily talking about in the moment where something hard is happening that you look for silver linings. I'm talking about day-to-day modeling, finding silver linings. So, like, at dinner tonight, if I say, yeah, my car broke down, my tire went flat on the way, but you know what? This guy pulled over and helped me so that I didn't have to be alone on the freeway, and it was just such a nice gesture, and it made me feel so good. And next time, I hope I can be in a situation where I can help. So it's just unrelated to anything that the kids are going through, but just knowing that, wow, my mom had a tough situation, but she looked at it from a different perspective. So that's kind of what I mean too about modeling resilience.
Yeah, I mean, just the other day when the U.S. started bombing Iran, I was like, hey, Masha, Iran supplies weapons to Russia, so maybe there's a silver lining somewhere in there. Who knows? But anyways, I think this is a good time to get into the "Is this normal?" segment.
Okay. I want to really normalize for kids of divorced or never married households that their living arrangements are shared by other kids. Less than half, like 45% of kids in America are living with their two biological parents in the same home. So that meaning even kids that are living in two-parent households are not necessarily living with their biological parents. I think it's just so important, because as kids want to feel like they belong and that they're not, different or freaks. And I think, like, we just want kids to know that their living situation is shared by other kids.
So it's almost that being in the 55% might be more normal.
We're like, yeah, to the new norm.
I mean, but obviously the majority would still be the 45%, I suppose.
And I know it's the name of the normal, like, is this normal? But it's just like, I think like I had to switch my mind from normal to conventional. I'm not trying to change that, but it's just like, what is the norm, right? I would start showing you distribution of normal distribution. I don't want to at the same time, yeah.
But yeah, I think similarly we use the word typical, because normal in medicine we use the word typical, like, and someone could be developing typically or atypically. So I get your point. But let's move on to
stuff you did not know.
So I thought this was fascinating. 12th grade girls today, so this is Pew Research, they're less interested in getting married than today's 12th grade boys, which is, a shift, because historically boys were less interested in getting married. So the number of boys has stayed stable over the last few decades. The number of boys interested in getting married has remained stable over the last few decades.
They just can't find
but the
anyone.
because the number of girls interested in getting married has gone down. So I found that interesting. And about 70% of young adults, so that's ages 18 through 35, say they do not feel pressure from their parents to get married or have kids. These are not our parents. I feel like that's crazy, right? I mean, it's so interesting how times.
Yeah. I think my Ukrainian parents are far more closer to your parents than any other American parents.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot in common between those.
I think that's great that kids aren't feeling the pressure, but I was really surprised to see that.
And, I think, it comes, maybe Masha can chime in. I think, I don't know firsthand, but I would think this comes back to economics again. Why would you want to get married when you're 22 and 23 and, quote unquote, that's like the foundation to start your new life when you don't have a good job?
So that brings us to my next fun fact, which is only about half of 12th graders today say that they want to get married, and less than half say they want to have children, which is also a decline in the last 30 years. So this is the very likely, So about half of 12th graders say they're very likely to get married, or that's what they want, and less than half say they are very likely to want to have children. So this is exactly to your point, is that people are kind of looking they're not necessarily following the conventional trajectory that we may have grown up feeling the pressure to live.
Yeah. And, as society progresses, I just think humans in general, there was a time when we were closer to nature and it's like, you need to procreate. That's a part of life. Now it's like, hey, life has a lot to offer, a lot more than it did 500 years ago or even 100 years ago, where, kids may not mean it's going to be better and more fun and more exciting. And
well, you're about to find out, aren't you, Raman?
Yeah, I guess so. Tune in.
Well, thank you so much, Masha, for sharing such an intimate story. I don't think it's easy to talk about things like divorce and how you talked about it with your kids. And I love that you shared some lessons learned, which will hopefully help some of our listeners. And Raman, you're getting closer and closer to having this baby. So I'm wishing Ashley and you all good things for these next couple months while the baby continues to gestate.
Thanks. And Masha, I want to say thank you too. You were wonderful. You were like amazing. Maybe you should be the new host.
No, I don't think so. I think we're doing pretty good in our roles right now. So,
all right.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Divorce doesn't come with a manual, and figuring out how to co-parent, how to introduce a new partner, how to help kids make sense of a family that looks different than it used to, well, that's really hard stuff. If Masha's story gave you something today, anything at all, please share this episode with someone who might need it. And if you've been listening for a while, and I have a feeling that you have been, now is a great time to leave us a review. It really does help other parents find us. We'll see you next time, and thank you so much.